So today we are going to be reviewing the 2024 Porsche Carrera 911 T. Now the T stands for touring, and I want to talk a little bit about who this car is geared towards, and then also what it's really about, because it is the lightest 911 that you could buy in the entire lineup, bearing the GT3 out of the picture, and then also depending on how you spec it. So we're going to talk through all that stuff. We're going to look through the interior, the build quality, how it drives, and then I'm going to give you my impressions. All that coming up right now. All right. Okay, so here we are inside of the 911's interior, and yeah, I mean, look, what can I say right off the cuff? It's a 911 interior, right? So what does that mean? It's what you expect. Everything's in the right place. The first thing you're going to notice right away is your seating position is really, really nice. You're sitting down low, and these four-way adjustable seats, you know, they do a really good job. I mean, you feel hugged and bolstered, but comfortable too, which is important. And actually, these are the exact same design as the 18 ways, and so, you know, I don't think in this car the 18 ways make sense. They're just a heavier seat with more motors and stuff. I mean, these are assisted to some extent. You can use the assistance to go up and down. Also, the back rest moves forward and back. But if you want to move the whole seat, there's a manual adjustment right here, and you go forward and backwards that way. But honestly, they're great seats, and I love that I'm sitting down low, so you feel like you're in the car and part of the car. Some cars have a high seating position, which makes you feel like you're sitting on top of it. It's not really the case here. This feels really, really good. All the inputs are in the right place. The pedals feel good. I mean, it's just perfection from that perspective, right? So, but I think that also speaks to more than, you know, Porsche and how they do things. It's also the philosophy of the T. Because one thing you're going to notice about all the Ts is that, or in theory anyway, is that they're going to be spec'd a little bit more for driving pleasure, hopefully, than luxury. This car is a good example of that. You don't see leather here and here with custom deviated stitching everywhere. It's really just meant for keeping the car light, simple, functional, performance oriented. Check the boxes for performance stuff, not, you know, for showing off at a Cars and Coffee. I think that's what the T is really about. But a couple of things. In this car, you do have, as part of the seats, this one does have Carrera T seat package, which is this lizard green stitching with the cloth inserts in the middle, 911 on the headrest, and then of course, the green seat belts, which are fantastic. I think a little color in here is good, right? Because if not, it's a lot of black. Black's functional too, but you know, you gotta have some fun. So I think it's a good balance, and at $2,600, it's a pretty good deal actually in Porsche world. Also for $200, this car has the race text around the steering wheel and on the stick shift knob. This is a little bit subjective and controversial for some people, but you know, they think that after a couple of years, this will look terrible and really fray out and look bad. That could be true, but I think it depends on how sweaty your hands are. I mean, my hands don't sweat. I don't have a problem with that. So to me, I actually like the softness. Also, if you're going to be on a racetrack and you really want to take that seriously, you're probably wearing Nomex gloves, and those gloves actually stick extra well to Alcantara and race text. So that's really good, because on a racetrack you want to have all those inputs in place. The one thing to pay attention to is the philosophy of the T is to keep it light, to keep it functional, and to keep it performance oriented, which is really for the person in this seat, not so much that seat. And I think that's accentuated by the fact that you get Sport Chrono as standard. You get lightweight glass all around as standard. You've got a lightweight battery. You've got the rear wheel steering option. You got PASM. You know, you've got less sound deadening in the car. And, you know, I think all of those things are where, and of course, no back seat, but this one has the back seat put back in. All of those things are brought together in this car for the weight savings. And I just want to make sure that people understand that you can get this car in a PDK, but you shouldn't, because the PDK gearbox is so much more heavy that if you were to put it in, what'll happen is the weight of that will negate all of the other things that make the T light. And so at that point, why not just get like an S or a base Carrera and then, you know, spec it to your heart's desire, because that's really where the balance is. So I think, just no question, you know, this is really for people who love to drive stick shifts, who love to enjoy the experience of driving, especially the unique driving experience of a 911. The acceleration from the T is really good. I mean, I don't think that the number 379 horsepower should deter anybody from wanting one of these, because I don't even think that's the real number. They've got to be sandbagging, because this thing feels a lot faster than that, and it could be partially because of the download torque, but you know, this just feels like it's got plenty of power. And honestly, I don't know if I need more power than this, because once you add more power, like say if you were to put a tune on this, you'd probably get about 80 horsepower or more, plus maybe 100 foot-pounds of torque. I mean, that's a lot. If you were to do that, now you've kind of upset the balance of the car. This car in its current form, just factory fresh, feels so happy because all the components match. The power and the brakes are balanced. The suspension feels just right. And I run this pretty much in the soft setting for the most part. No need to go stiff, but if you wanted to put on the PASM full stiff, there's roads that will allow for that. This particular road, not so much. But I do want to say that this feels like a happy car. And that means that the engineering that went into this was very purposeful. And, you know, the gear ratios make sense. You're shifting a lot. You're not staying in one gear forever. Like right there. And, you know, it just feels good. I wouldn't want to upset this balance. And because once you do, now you're kind of like dedicated to spending a lot more money, because now you've got to upgrade everything else. And, you know, now you're your own R&D too. And like, I'm not going to do a better job than Porsche engineers. I'm just not. So let's talk about exhaust sound. One thing I'm noticing is that it's not very loud. And, you know, I mean, you pay for a sport exhaust and it sounds okay. I mean, it sounds good, but it's really geared towards being inside the car. Like, you don't really hear this exhaust on the outside. As a matter of fact, you know, I think when you hear the car drive from the outside, you're really hearing more engine sound than exhaust sound. So, you know, to each their own. I don't know if that's a taste of yours, if you carry the way. The good news is, like any Carrera, there's lots of exhaust systems out there, you know, that you can swap out and probably find one that matches your liking. But I think that personally, I kind of like that it's quiet. I'll tell you why. It's because as I've gotten older, and mind you, you know, as I get older, I should say, it just feels a little bit more grown up. I think having a louder exhaust system is a little bit too flashy, like look at me, and boy racerish a little bit. So I kind of appreciate this being a little bit more geared towards the driver on the inside of the car, not the observer on the outside. But that doesn't mean that every so often I don't want to, like, you know, rev it up and really get some attention. I mean, I do got a little bit of that in me too at times. But overall, it sounds good. That's all you need to know. Lots of ways to upgrade. That's all you need to know. You just have to have the desire to want to do it. All right, so that is the drive in the 2024 Porsche Carrera 911T. So let's conclude some stuff, shall we? So first off, who's this car geared towards? I really do feel like if you're looking for a luxurious experience, this probably isn't the model for you. Go for a bottom barrel Carrera, which you could spec up to crazy levels of luxury, or even an S, because that will give you the ability to get a stick shift and the luxury, and that's kind of a nice balance, and a lot more power and torque and stuff. But, you know, again, it's not really who this car is aimed for. This is the car that's aimed for the person that's just no nonsense, I like to drive. And based on that, it kind of is me. I mean, that's what I care about most. I don't really care about the stereo so much. I don't care about, you know, having all the stitching and all that stuff. I mean, it's nice to have a car that, you know, you spec'd out that looks great, but what I care about the most is the experience of the car. And that's been true of like every car I've ever owned. And I think the T really does deliver on its promise on that. Now let's talk about the driving experience itself. I kind of hinted towards it in the video, but this is a very happy car. Everything is balanced. And what I mean by that is the power matches the brakes, you know, the brakes and power match the suspension, and it all works together with the steering, and it just, everything about this car comes together in a nice way where it feels like it's cohesive. And I think that's really hard to find today. And, you know, here's a good example of a situation where that's not the case. You can go out and buy a brand new Ford Mustang Dark Horse, which tons of power, similar power actually, 500 horsepower. Obviously this has got a little less, but similar power, sports car, track car, you know, sounds great, V8, the whole thing, stick shift. Problem is when you drive it, the steering is so over boosted that it doesn't feel like you're attached to the car. And I think rather than having the driver have to acclimate to what the car would do in any given situation, the T doesn't do that. The T goes, we're both, you know, we're one. And this is the driving situation, and you can feel what the car is doing. The car will do what you want it to do based on what you feel. So that cohesiveness is what you're paying for. And so with that being said, it's just a great driving experience. And by the way, I've driven this car so far in like traffic, at the store, you know, on this beautiful mountain road. And what I'm getting from it is just all smiles. I mean, it doesn't really matter what situation I'm in. I'm pretty happy driving this thing. That being said, you know, it is an expensive car. So it does put it in a category where there's other vehicles that you could get into, like a Z06, for example. But I will say that is a very different car community than this one. So kind of depends on what you want to do with the car and, you know, who you want to interact with on forums, but ultimately you have options. So all that being said, this car gets 2 thumbs up for me. That is the drive, guys, here. If you guys have any questions, please go ahead and put them down below. And other than that, I will catch you guys on the next one.